I hired a professional companion for one evening, thinking it would be harmless. Just a suit, a smile, and a hand to hold at my company gala. When the man named Owen arrived, he asked one unexpected question. "Do you want to be seen, Caleb?" That question changed everything for me. If this story moves you, subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps us create safe, hopeful LGBTQ stories every day here. I lived on the 3rd floor of a brick building near Rittenhouse Square, the kind with a narrow staircase that made you learn patience one step at a time. I'd been in that apartment for 6 years, long enough to know which floorboards creaked and which neighbors argued softly through the wall on Sunday nights. I was the tenant who paid on time, kept the hallway quiet, and nodded politely in the lobby. I also kept my life small. It wasn't that I didn't have a good job. I did. I worked as a compliance manager for a regional investment firm, a role that rewarded calm thinking and careful wording. I was respected. I was trusted. In meetings, people leaned in when I spoke, as if my steady voice could make complicated problems simpler. Outside the office, though, I moved like someone trying not to disturb the air. My friends, what few I kept close, knew I was gay. My younger sister knew. My therapist knew. But the world in general only knew what I allowed it to know. And I had gotten very skilled at adjusting the story depending on who was listening. I wasn't ashamed of myself anymore, not the way I used to be. I was just cautious, maybe too cautious. If you've ever spent years building a life that looks stable, you understand how scary it is to change anything, even for the better. That was the year my firm started pushing culture, not in an aggressive way, in a glossy, upbeat way that came with an email subject line like, "Bring your whole self to work." It meant company events, charity nights, and the unspoken expectation that we'd all show up smiling with +1s, proving we were well-rounded adults with healthy, photogenic lives. The invitation arrived in late March, the Spring Giving Gala at a hotel in Center City. Tickets paid for by the firm. Guests encouraged, the email said. Partners welcome. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. My office was quiet, my desk orderly, my coffee cooling beside the keyboard. I could already picture the room. Soft lighting. White linen tablecloths, a microphone near a podium, co-workers laughing too loudly, and the inevitable question from someone in leadership. "So, Caleb, who did you bring?" I'd done this before. I'd gone to events alone and made jokes about being married to my job. I'd deflected with charm, but lately it felt heavier, like the joke was wearing thin. I was 44. The loneliness had stopped being temporary and started feeling like a permanent address. That night I walked home instead of taking the train, letting the city's movement keep me company. On Walnut Street, people stepped around me with purpose, couples talking quietly, friends sharing takeout. The air smelled like street food and spring rain, and the faint sweetness of cherry blossoms beginning to wake up. When I reached my building, I paused at the front door and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I admitted the truth to myself. I didn't want to go to the gala alone. I didn't want to keep pretending it didn't matter. Upstairs, I fed my cat, Edison, and microwaved leftovers I didn't really taste. I sat at my small kitchen table and looked at the invitation on my phone again. I could invite a friend, sure, but I wanted a date, even if only for one night. Not for show, not to impress anyone, just to feel for a few hours what it might be like to be chosen. I opened my laptop and typed something I never thought I would type. Professional Companion Service, Philadelphia. The results were a mix of sketchy and polished, and I felt my face get hot with embarrassment even though I was alone. I clicked away from anything that looked explicit. I wasn't looking for sex. I was looking for company, for conversation, for a kind presence beside me while I navigated a room full of expectations. I found an agency that described itself in plain terms. Social companionship for events and dinners. Clear boundaries, consent-centered, professional service. It looked legitimate. There were testimonials, rates, and something that calmed me, the word contract. I filled out a form with shaking hands, event date, location, dress code. A short note. I need a +1 for a formal charity gala. I'd like someone who can make conversation and help me feel less alone. A reply came the next day. 3 profiles. Names, photos, and short bios. One profile made me pause. Owen Hale, 37. Former EMT, calm presence. Skilled conversationalist, comfortable at formal events. Focused on respectful professional companionship. His photo showed kind eyes and a small, steady smile that looked practiced in the best way, like someone who had learned how to put people at ease. His hair was dark, neatly styled. He wore a suit, but the suit didn't wear him. He looked like he belonged anywhere without needing to prove it. I selected Owen and paid the deposit. As soon as I clicked confirm, panic crawled up my throat. What am I doing? I closed the laptop and stood in my kitchen, listening to Edison's quiet chewing. My heart was racing like I'd done something reckless. I reminded myself of the truth. I was hiring a legal professional companion for an event. I wasn't doing anything unsafe. I wasn't hurting anyone. Still, my body didn't care about logic. My body remembered fear. The week of the gala arrived too quickly. I tried on my suit, adjusted my tie, and cleaned my apartment as if Owen might inspect the baseboards. I wasn't sure why I cared. Maybe because letting someone into my space, anyone, felt intimate now. On the afternoon of the gala, I stood at my window and watched the city glow under a pale spring sun. I checked the time again. At 6 on the dot, the doorbell rang. My palms went damp. I opened the door. Owen stood in the hallway in a charcoal suit with a simple navy tie. He held himself with quiet confidence, not flashy, not arrogant. He looked directly at me and smiled in a way that made my chest loosen. "Caleb?" he asked. "Yes," I said, stepping aside. "You must be Owen." "I am," he replied. "Thank you for having me. Before we go, can we go over boundaries and expectations? I want tonight to feel safe and comfortable for you." The professionalism steadied me. "Yes," I said. "Please." Owen stepped in and glanced around my apartment politely, not nosy. Edison approached, sniffed Owen's shoes, and immediately decided he was acceptable. Owen's smile softened. "He's friendly. He's selective," I said. "That's basically a compliment." Owen chuckled. "I'll take it." We sat at my kitchen table. Owen pulled out a simple printed agreement and a pen. "Here's what I offer," he said. "Companionship, conversation, a +1 presence. I can hold your hand in public if you request it. No kissing unless you explicitly ask and I explicitly agree. No intimacy. If anything feels uncomfortable, we stop immediately. You can end the evening at any time, no explanation required." I swallowed hard. "I'm not looking for intimacy," I said. I need to get through a room full of questions without feeling like I'm shrinking." Owen studied me with gentle attention. "I can do that," he said. "And one more question, if that's okay." "Okay." "Do you want to be seen tonight?" he asked. "Or do you want to be protected from being seen?" The question landed in my chest like a small bell, clear, resonant. "I don't know," I admitted. "Both," Owen nodded as if that made perfect sense. "We can do both," he said. "We can start with protection, and if you want to be seen later, we can shift. You lead." We signed. I paid the remaining fee. And then, because the moment felt too quiet, I found myself asking the first honest question I'd asked in a long time. "Why do you do this?" I asked. "Companionship work." Owen's eyes flickered. "I'll answer that later," he said softly. "If you still want to know." That was the first open loop, though I didn't realize it yet. I only knew his answer made me curious. At the hotel, Owen offered me his arm before we walked in. "Only if you want," he said. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes," I said. "Please." His arm was warm and solid. And when we entered the ballroom together, I felt taller, not because Owen was there to impress anyone, but because his steady presence reminded my nervous system that I wasn't alone. Co-workers greeted us. Owen shook hands, smiled, asked polite questions, listened. He didn't dominate conversations. He didn't perform. He simply made space for me to breathe. Halfway through the evening, my boss approached, glass in hand. "Caleb," she said, smiling. "And you are?" Owen turned slightly toward me, giving me the option. I felt it, him letting me decide who I was in that moment. "This is Owen," I said. My voice was steady. "He's with me tonight." My boss smiled. "Wonderful. Enjoy the evening." And just like that, the world did not collapse. Later, as a speaker talked about charity goals and community impact, Owen leaned closer and murmured, "How are you doing?" I surprised myself. "Better," I whispered back. "I didn't think I would be." Owen's gaze softened. "Good." When the gala ended, we stepped outside into cool night air. The city hummed around us, and my body finally released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Owen turned to me under the hotel's awning. "Would you like me to walk you home?" he asked. "Or would you prefer to end here?" A line of taxis waited at the curb. People laughed, said goodbyes. The night felt open. "Walk me home," I said. Then, because it mattered, I added, "Please." We walked in comfortable silence for a few blocks. At my building, I paused at the steps. Owen stood one step below me, looking up, his face calm and attentive. "You asked me something earlier," he said. "About why I do this." I nodded. "I still want to know." Owen took a breath. "I'm saving for something important," he said. "And I needed flexible work. But I'm good at helping people feel less alone. That part matters to me. More than I expected." I stared at him, realizing how much his presence had mattered tonight, how it had shifted something in me. "Thank you," I said quietly. Owen's expression grew gentler. "You're welcome," he said. Then he asked, "Do you want to book another evening?" "Not tonight. Later. Only if you want." I should have said no. The safe choice was to end it here, keep it clean and professional, file it away as one brave night. Instead, I said, "Yes, I do." Owen nodded once, like he was sealing something. "Okay," he said. "Good night, Caleb." As he walked away, I felt my heart twist with something unfamiliar. Not shame, not fear. Hope. And that scared me more than anything. The next week, I told myself I was being practical. I told myself I wanted to book Owen again because the gala had been easier with him there, and I had another event coming up, and it simply made sense. The truth was, I wanted to hear him laugh again. I wanted to feel that steady calm beside me. I wanted to know what he was saving for, and why it sounded like it mattered enough to shape his life. I booked a dinner, not a corporate event. Just dinner at a quiet restaurant in Old City. The agency confirmed. Owen arrived on time, dressed nicely, but not overly formal. As soon as he stepped into the restaurant, he scanned the room, not with suspicion, but with awareness, like he was making sure I felt safe. "Hi," he said, smiling. "Hi," I replied, and my voice sounded softer than I expected. We sat. We ordered. We talked. At first it was light, books, movies, the best bakery in town. Owen had a dry humor that made me laugh without trying. He asked me questions that weren't invasive but were real. Where did you grow up? What's something you miss from childhood? What do you do when you can't sleep? I found myself answering honestly. When the food came, Owen waited until the server left, then asked gently, "Do you want this to be strictly professional tonight? Or do you want it to feel more like two people getting to know each other?" My fork paused mid-air. "What's the difference?" I asked. Owen's eyes held mine. "Professional means I keep things on the surface unless you invite more," he said. "Getting to know each other means I let myself be more human, too. I tell you the truth, not just the safe version." "I want the truth," I said. Owen nodded. "Okay," he said. "Then I'll start with mine." He told me about being an EMT in Pittsburgh for nearly a decade, about the long shifts and the adrenaline and the quiet trauma that accumulates in the body. He told me about the night he realized he couldn't keep doing it without burning out completely. He moved to Philadelphia to be closer to his younger sister, who was in nursing school. "She's the best person I know," he said, and the way he said it made me believe him. "And now you do companionship work?" I said carefully. "Yes," Owen replied. "And before you ask, I'm careful about what I accept and what I don't. I don't do anything that feels unsafe. I have boundaries. I work through the agency because it keeps things clear." He watched me, as if waiting for judgment. I didn't judge him. I felt something else, respect. For someone who knew his limits and protected them, "What are you saving for?" I asked. And my heart kicked up again because this was the question he'd promised to answer fully. Owen's gaze dropped to the table. "My sister's student loans," he said. "And my mother's house." "Your mother's house?" "She lives outside Pittsburgh. Owen explained. She's getting older. The mortgage isn't huge, but it's enough to keep her anxious. I promised I'd help. I don't want her to lose the place where I grew up. It's the only steady thing she's ever had. The sincerity in his voice made my throat tighten. That's a big promise. I made it, Owen said. I keep my promises. There was the second open loop, though again I didn't name it. Owen keeps his promises. I wondered what it would mean if he promised something to me. Dinner ended and we walked to the river, the water reflecting city lights. A cool breeze moved between us. Owen kept his hands in his pockets, respectful, not assuming anything. I stopped near the railing. Can I ask you something? I said. Anything? He replied. Do you ever feel lonely? I asked. Doing work like this? Owen's mouth tightened slightly. Sometimes, he admitted. It's strange to be close to people and still feel alone. But I also meet people who are genuinely kind. People who just need a little courage. That helps. We stood there quiet. The moment felt delicate. Like if I said the wrong thing, it would break. Owen, I said softly. Are you lonely right now? He looked at me with those steady eyes. Yes, he said. A little. My chest hurt. Not from sadness exactly, but from recognition. Me too, I admitted. Owen nodded as if he understood. I know, he said gently. I can feel it in the way you scan rooms, in the way you apologize for taking up space. I laughed once, surprised and not amused. Is it that obvious? To someone trained to notice, Owen said. We walked back toward my building. At my door, I hesitated. Would you like to come up for tea? I asked quickly, then added, no pressure. We can keep it professional. Just tea, Owen paused. Only if you want it, he said. And only if we're clear. Tea, conversation. Nothing else unless you ask. And even then, we talk first. I nodded. That's what I want, I said. Tea and conversation. Upstairs, Edison inspected Owen again and then settled near his shoes like he'd already decided Owen belonged. We made tea. We sat on my couch. And the longer Owen sat in my living room, the more I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't want to pay him to be here. I wanted him to want to be here. The thought made my stomach flip. It wasn't romantic yet, not fully. It was something more fragile, a longing to be chosen without a transaction. Owen, I said, setting my cup down, can I ask you something that might be unfair? He looked at me. Ask, he said. If you weren't being paid, I said, would you still be here right now? Owen's expression softened into something complicated. That's a fair question, he said. And I'm going to answer honestly. My breath caught. I would, Owen said. I like you, Caleb. I liked you the first night. Not because you hired me, because you looked terrified and still showed up. Because you asked about boundaries. Because you didn't treat me like a fantasy. You treated me like a person. The warmth in his words hit me so hard I blinked fast. Then why are we doing this the paid way? I asked quietly. Owen exhaled. Because it's safer, he said. For you and for me. You get companionship without risk, and I keep control of my time and my boundaries. But, he paused, but I can feel you wanting something more real, and I need to be careful because of me, I asked. Careful because of both of us, Owen replied. Because feelings change the rules. He was right. I could feel it happening, something shifting inside me, pulling me toward him like gravity. What do we do? I asked. Owen looked at me for a long moment, and then he said, we tell the truth. Right now. I nodded. I like you, Owen said. I'm attracted to you. But I won't blur professional boundaries while I'm working. I've learned the hard way that mixing feelings with paid companionship can hurt people. I swallowed. I respect that, I said, even though part of me wanted to argue. And you? Owen asked. What's the truth for you? I stared at my hands. I think I'm falling for you, I admitted. And that scares me because I've built my life on not needing anyone. But I needed you the first night, and now my voice tightened. Now I want you, Owen nodded slowly. Thank you for saying it, he said. Here's my suggestion. I waited, heart pounding. We finished this booking like we agreed, Owen said. Tea, conversation, then I leave. Tomorrow you call the agency and cancel all future bookings with me. Not because I don't want to see you, but because if we're going to explore this, it has to be real. No money, no contract. Two adults choosing each other. My eyes stung. And if I do that, I asked, will you actually see me? Owen's smile was small and sincere. Yes, he said. If you want me to. That night, Owen left after tea and conversation. No kiss, no dramatic moment. Just a quiet goodbye that somehow felt more intimate than anything else. The next morning, I canceled all future bookings. My hands shook as I did it, and for the rest of that day, I waited for Owen to disappear to decide it was safer to keep distance. To ghost me the way people sometimes do when vulnerability shows up. At 7:14 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text. Hi, Caleb, this is Owen. Not through the agency, just me. If you'd like to get dinner this Friday, I'd like that. I stared at the screen so long Edison meowed at me for ignoring him. Then I typed back, yes, Friday. And for the first time in years, I felt the kind of nervous excitement that makes you believe life still holds surprises. Friday arrived wearing sunshine like a promise. The air was soft, the kind of spring evening that makes you want to walk instead of rush. I stood at my mirror, adjusting my collar, telling myself to breathe, telling myself this was just dinner. Then I heard a knock. Owen stood in the hallway, no suit this time, no professional polish. Just a dark jacket, jeans, and that steady smile. Hi, he said. Hi, I replied. My voice cracked slightly and he noticed but didn't comment. We walked to a small place near Fiddler Square with warm lighting and a quiet patio. No one knew who we were. No one cared. We were simply two men having dinner on a Friday night. It felt like freedom. We talked differently now. More personal, less careful. Owen told me about his sister, Elise, and how she'd always been his anchor. I told him about my divorce at 36, brief marriage, mutual kindness, a slow realization that I'd been trying to fit myself into something that never fit. I'm sorry, Owen said gently. It was honest, I replied. Just late, Owen's eyes held mine. Late honesty still counts, he said. After dinner, we walked along the Schuylkill River Trail. The water moved quietly beside us, and lights from the city trembled on the surface. We slowed near a bench. Owen stopped walking. Can I ask you something? He said. Anything, I replied, and realized how much I liked saying that to him. Owen took a breath. Do you want to hold hands? He asked. Not because you need a +1. Not because it's part of a booking. Just because you want to. My throat tightened. It was such a simple question, and it carried so much weight. Yes, I said. Owen offered his hand. I took it. Our fingers laced together like it had always been possible, and the city didn't punish us. Nobody shouted. Nobody stared. A couple walked by with a dog and didn't even glance. My heart hammered anyway, but it wasn't fear this time. It was grief for all the years I'd spent believing I couldn't have this. Owen squeezed my hand once. You okay? He asked softly. I'm okay, I said. And then I added, I'm happier than I expected. Owen smiled. Me too, he said. We dated for months, slowly, intentionally. Owen kept his boundaries with quiet strength. When I moved too fast emotionally, he didn't shame me. He simply asked, can we pause and breathe? And I learned to do it. When Owen had hard days, days when his mother called worried about money, days when his sister's loan statements arrived like a storm, he didn't pretend everything was fine. He said, I'm stressed, and I learned that love doesn't require pretending, but there was something we had to face sooner or later. Owen was still doing companionship work, just not with me. He had commitments, a schedule, people who depended on him financially. One night, sitting on my couch with Edison purring between us, I finally said, this is the part I don't know how to talk about. Owen looked at me calmly. Say it anyway, he said. I don't want to control your life, I said. I don't want to judge your work. But I don't know how to build something serious while your job involves being someone's companion. Owen nodded slowly. Thank you, he said, for saying it without blaming me. I'm trying, I admitted. I've been thinking about it too, Owen said. He reached for my hand. I don't want to do this forever. I never did. I needed it for a season, to help my family to rebuild after EMT burnout. But I want something stable, something that's mine. My chest loosened. What do you want? I asked. Owen's eyes brightened slightly, like he was seeing a doorway. I want to go back to school, he said. Not for a whole new life. For something adjacent. Patient advocacy. Hospital administration. Something that uses what I already know about people in crisis. That sounds like you, I said. But I'm scared, Owen admitted. It means less money for a while. It means asking for help. And I'm used to being the one who helps. I looked at him. This man who had steadied me on my weakest night and felt something settle into certainty. Let me help, I said quietly. Owen's jaw tightened. I don't want to be your project, he said immediately. You're not, I replied. You're my partner, and partners help each other. But you're right. We need it to be healthy. So let's talk specifics. No rescuing, no saving. Just support. Owen held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, he said. Support. Over the next weeks, we planned carefully. Owen reduced his bookings gradually. He applied to programs. He met with advisors. He took a part-time role at a clinic doing intake and patient navigation, using his EMT experience in a way that didn't drain him. I didn't pay his bills. I didn't buy his freedom. I did something simpler and more honest. I showed up. I cooked dinner when he studied. I listened when he doubted himself. I celebrated when he got accepted into a certificate program. I sat beside him at Elisa's graduation from nursing school, and I watched Owen's face as he saw his sister step into her future. Afterward, Elise hugged him so tightly I saw Owen blink back tears. Then she hugged me. Thank you, she whispered. I shook my head. He did this, I murmured back. He's the reason. In the fall, Owen's mother visited from Pennsylvania. I was nervous. Not because she would disapprove of us. Owen had told me. She was loving, but because meeting someone's mother always feels like stepping into the roots of their heart. She arrived with a casserole, dish and a warm smile. So you're Caleb, she said, hugging me like she'd known me for years. Owen talks about you the way a man talks about a sunrise after a long winter. I laughed awkwardly, then looked at Owen, who was blushing. During dinner, his mother told stories about Owen as a boy, about his stubborn kindness, about how he'd always tried to carry the family's weight. I'm glad he has you, she said to me later while Owen washed dishes. He needs someone who lets him put down the heavy things sometimes. I'm glad I have him too, I said honestly. That night, after his mother went to bed, Owen and I stood in the kitchen together. He leaned against the counter and looked at me with a softness that made my throat tighten. I have something to ask you, he said. My pulse jumped. Okay, Owen stepped closer. Do you remember the first night? He asked. When I asked if you wanted to be seen, I nodded. I remember. I want to be seen too, Owen said. Not just as someone who helps, not as someone who performs, as myself. With you, he took a breath. So I'm asking you something simple, he continued. Will you come with me to my program's welcome event next week? As my boyfriend, publicly. The word boyfriend landed gently and firmly. I smiled. Yes, I said. And I'm proud to be there. The welcome event was in a university building with fluorescent lights and folding chairs. Nothing glamorous. But when Owen introduced me as his boyfriend to his classmates, I felt a swell of pride that had nothing to do with the label and everything to do with the truth. We were real. Not a booking. Not an arrangement. A choice. A year after our first dinner as two people, not client and companion, Owen and I walked through Reading Terminal Market on a Saturday morning. We bought soft pretzels and fresh flowers and coffee that smelled like cinnamon. We moved easily through the crowd, shoulders brushing, hands finding each other without thought. Owen paused near a flower stand and looked at me with that familiar, steady calm. Caleb, he said. I have another question for you, I laughed. You and your questions. This one matters, he said. And his voice was gentle but serious. He pulled a small box from his pocket. My breath caught so hard it almost hurt. Owen, I whispered. He opened it. Inside was a simple ring. Silver, unpretentious, beautiful. I'm not the person you hired, he said softly, and you're not the man who needed protection from being seen. We've both changed. We've both chosen something real. He swallowed, and I saw his hand tremble just slightly. Will you marry me? He asked. I couldn't speak at first. My eyes filled. All I could think about was the first night when he stood in my kitchen and offered safety. How he'd asked permission before every step. How he'd never taken more than I offered. How he'd shown me that love could be tender and strong at the same time. Yes, I managed. Then, louder, because the world could hear me now. Yes, I will. People nearby clapped softly, strangers smiling at us the way humans sometimes do when they witness joy. Owen stood and slid the ring onto my finger with careful hands. Can I kiss you? He asked, still asking, still honoring consent even in celebration. Yes, I said, smiling through tears. We kissed in the middle of the market, gentle and sure. Edison would not have approved of me kissing without him present, but I forgave that. Later, back in my apartment, Owen sat on my couch, and I rested my head on his shoulder. The city outside moved on, indifferent and beautiful. I looked at the ring and felt something in my chest, settle into quiet certainty. I'd hired a male escort because I didn't want to walk into a ballroom alone. I thought I was paying for company. What I found was someone who taught me how to be honest, how to ask for what I needed, how to be seen without apology. Someone who didn't rescue me but stood beside me until I remembered I could stand too. Owen became my soulmate not because the story was dramatic, but because it was deliberate. Because we chose boundaries. We chose truth. We chose each other, again and again, without shortcuts. If you had told me a year earlier that I would be engaged to the man I hired for a gala, I would have laughed and called it impossible. But here I was, finally living a life that didn't require shrinking. And for the first time in a long time, my apartment didn't